I'm James Brierton in Charlotte. We got Evan Fisher in Asheville, North Carolina. Coming up, we're going to be talking about a severe weather threat that is going to be rolling through the Carolinas on Thursday, bringing heavy rain, gusty winds, and the possibility of tornadoes. And then Evan's here to talk to us about the chances of seeing snow on the backside of that storm. That is number one on our agenda. Number two on our agenda is our new interview. You love him. We love him. He's the Weather Channel's Jim Cantore. Take a look at this.
You love doing what you do. No one's trying to get rid of you, but how much longer do you think you're going to do this for? Is there going to be a point where you go, okay, that's enough risk. I have checked this box.
I'm looking at my girlfriend laughing right now.
Is there something on the Jim Cantore bucket list
yes.
that you have not done yet?
I know where you're going with that. You don't even have to finish the question.
We will play that interview with the Weather Channel's Jim Cantore, looking back on the big storms of 2022, and as you saw right there, talking candidly about what's next in his career coming your way no later than 9:30 tonight. Welcoming in Scotty Powell from Myrtle Beach. As you can see, there was a dress code for tonight's show, and we have all adhered to it. This is kicking off the 9th year of the Carolina Weather Group. And while we will get to Jim Cantore in just a moment, take a look at the latest Futurecast model run from the HRRR. If you're listening on our podcast feed, we are looking at a squall line that is going to come through the Carolinas Thursday afternoon, roughly about the time of the evening commute. It's going to move, of course, from west to east, and with it bring the chance of heavy rain, gusty winds, a few isolated tornadoes, and then it's going to tee on up some colder weather that will bring the western North Carolina mountains their first chance of seeing snow this holiday season, this winter season. We'll see where my brain's at. The National Weather Service's Storm Prediction Center has issued their outlook for tomorrow. We have a slight risk. That is a tier 2 out of 5 for upstate South Carolina. We have a marginal risk, a tier 1 out of 5 for western North Carolina, including the I-77 corridor and Charlotte, and also as far to the east as the Triad. We're talking High Point and Greensboro. This would also, to the south, include portions of the I-77 corridor into Columbia. But Scotty, you were the one who I think first up tonight said, James, we've got to talk about these severe storms. You're in Myrtle Beach, so you're the furthest to the east of all of this. But what is it about the model runs, about the squall line, that has you most concerned for tomorrow?
Yeah, thank you, James. I think tomorrow is like one of those sneaky severe weather days where you have this marginal slight risk. It's not the enhanced or the moderate that you see on typical severe weather events, but there's a few things coming. First of all, this line is going to be moving through portions of the upstate, the Midlands of South Carolina, into western and central North Carolina right during the peak heating of the day. We're talking from like 2 o'clock to 6 o'clock. And I think we have just enough elements to get a few storms that could be pretty strong or severe. Also, as James is showing you that Futurecast right ahead of the line, looks like there could be a few discrete supercells that try to develop in the upstate of South Carolina and then track into the Piedmont of North Carolina. Ahead of the squall line, or what we call QLCS, where you can see embedded tornadoes in with that line with any of those kinks. So there's tons of shear out there available. The energy is there. It's not the best. It's kind of one of those high shear, low cape events. The only thing is, do we have enough lifting mechanism to kind of get these storms up and going? So that's the one caveat. That's the one question. Is there going to be enough lift in the atmosphere to get these storms going? That'll be a question that we'll have to just figure out tomorrow. One thing it doesn't look like is we're not going to be in that cloudy, cold stage that we normally see during the wintertime with any severe weather. It kind of looks like we're going to be pretty moist throughout the day. You'll probably see a return of humidity. Temperatures are going to be in the 60s. So we've got that energy or that juice there to see some storms. It's just, can we, what we call an inversion, can we kind of bust that cap and get these storms to really grow? So that's the one question to kind of answer that we don't know the answer for yet. But there is enough shear out there, enough changing of wind direction. Obviously, we know a big, strong northwest flow event is going to happen snowfall-wise in the North Carolina mountains. We'll talk about in a minute. But looking at some of those tornado probabilities, I think a lot of the areas between that 2 to 5%. And that's, when you say 2 to 5%, like, what does that mean? But that just means that you can see there's not a high threat, but there's not a zero threat. There's a threat there for an isolated tornado, and that really juts up into the Piedmont, into the upstate Midlands. And I wouldn't be surprised when this comes out. The newest update, I think, is right after midnight. We'll probably see that expanded a little bit more north, and probably sees a 5% somewhere introduced. And then the damage and wind threat, James, if you want to pop that up there, I think that's the biggest thing with this, is that squall line definitely will have some wind with it. And remember, we've preached on this show time after time, wind is wind, no matter if it's blowing in a straight line or if it's rotating, it can definitely do some damage. So, our friends in the upstate to the Midlands of South Carolina, you're under that 15% chance of damage and wind threat. Everyone else in that 5% chance. So that just shows you that the threat is there. Obviously, the 15% area in the upstate is a little bit more concerning, because that's when you can see definitely some damaging wind gusts. So it's just something we're going to have to watch tomorrow. If you see any sunshine or prolonged sunshine, that's not your friend tomorrow. You don't want to see the sun. That just adds to the instability. One thing is, as it moves through, if you're listening to us here along the Grand Strand or down in Charleston or even eastern North Carolina, as that line progresses towards the coast into the eastern part of the Carolinas, it starts to lose some of that instability as the sun is setting. Here at the beach, it's not supposed to move through till about 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. So though we can't rule out a gusty thunderstorm, it doesn't look like the energy is there like it would be over the upstate Midlands and western North Carolina.
Yeah, and let's, before we talk about snow, let's talk about one of the biggest unknowns and uncertainties in this tomorrow. And it is not so much an atmospheric thing, it is a technological thing. Because if you have been following us on social during our winter break, we have been talking about the National Weather Service radar in Greenville, Spartanburg, out of the Greer office, which serves upstate South Carolina, but also as far to the east as that I-77 corridor. It's down. It is not working. And so tomorrow we have this situation before us where we are not going to be able to use both the GSP radar, but also the radar out of the National Weather Service in Wilmington. What you have on the screen right now, for those of you watching with us on Facebook and YouTube, is what the National Weather Service in Greenville, Spartanburg has put out, kind of to show you the other radars that are going to try to fill in the gap in lieu of having the GSP radar tomorrow. And they include the Charlotte Terminal radar. What is facing them right now is this. Take a look at this picture, if I can make it nice and big on your screen. But this is the bowl gear of the radar that is supposed to be spinning and servicing upstate South Carolina and western North Carolina. And what you see there is metal shavings. So the weight of the 15,000-pound pedestal has grinded away at this bowl gear over the past 27 years to the point where on December 31st, the thing stops spinning. And so you need that radar inside that radar dome to spin in order to see the atmosphere. And without it, it doesn't spin. It doesn't work. So the National Weather Service has put together a plan to have the radar for GSP back online, but not until February 4th. Which means we have to go through tomorrow's event and any other future events between now and February 4th without the radar in GSP. The issue in Wilmington is a little bit different. That one was intentional. The radars that service across the country were built and deployed in the 90s using technology from the 80s. And so in order to keep these things running through the year 2030, the Weather Service, the Air Force, and others are investing millions of dollars to upgrade and refurbish the radars. And so what's going to happen over the course of the next 6 months is that the radars across the region, Wilmington, Columbia, Charleston, Greer, Blacksburg, Raleigh, Morehead City, Wakefield, are all going to go offline. This was planned. This was going to be, we're going to take these things off. line for 2 weeks, and we're going to get the pedestal refurbished. The pedestal being that really heavy piece that spins the antenna around and allows it to go 360 degrees. Well, you'll see on the screen here that Greer wasn't scheduled for their upgrade until early March, but when the thing just broke at the end of December, it jumped the line a little bit. So now that is going to start at the end of January. What that really does to the rest of the schedule, I don't know for sure, but I think the gist is the same, that between now and June, expect every radar in the Carolinas to intentionally and temporarily go offline for 2 weeks so that we can have it into the future for a longer period of time. But gentlemen, you guys know, you've been on this show long enough. The radar coverage in the Carolinas leaves some things to be desired, as we have talked about time and time again. In a city of 1 million people here in Charlotte, we are 70, 80, 90 miles away to our nearest full-blown, full-power radar. So that means we're going to go through tomorrow's event without that radar to our west. We're going to have to rely on radars in Atlanta, in Tennessee. And then as we get into the Charlotte area, it's going to be a mix of hoping the Columbia radar is good to go and has its Wheaties for breakfast, along with the radar in Roanoke and eventually out to Raleigh. We have that terminal. That terminal is very helpful, but it is less powerful than a full power radar and produces less imagery. It doesn't do any of the fancy dual pole stuff that we sometimes talk about when we nerd out on this show. So all that to say, keep your fingers crossed that we don't lose the terminal or we don't lose Columbia during this event tomorrow. Keep this in mind for the next 6 months. And also, if you are a super nerd like us and you use an app like Radar Scope, then expect to see lots of red squares over the course of the next 6 months.
One thing I'd like to add, James, to that is with tomorrow's setup, remember tornadoes occur the very bottom of the atmosphere. And so as these beams are shooting up from Roanoke or up from Columbia or Morristown, they're only sampling a real tall part of the sky. And so you may not see that rotation up there as you would down at the surface. So that is another one, especially these quick spin-ups that are possible tomorrow, that will have to be watched. And just to kind of what this reminds me of, this time last week, we had several quick spin-up tornadoes. They were weak, but they were tornadoes that affected the Columbia area. And that's kind of the setup we have going on tomorrow with this cold front moving in. And those QLCS tornadoes spinning up. They're on radar for one scan, and then they're off. And they're so hard to detect. And then you are looking at this where there's not a lot of radar usage anyway. And the ones that are kind of get interfered by mountaintops and just altitude. So it's going to be a tough day tomorrow.
It's going to be really hard to see places like Asheville where Evan is, because the radar trying to come in from Tennessee is being blocked by the mountains. The radar coming in from Atlanta is just too far away. And the Columbia radar is not all that close either. And the terminal, love it or hate it, it doesn't reach all that far. The terminal is going to go, where is that button I want? The terminal is going to reach out to about maybe Hickory, right? And then it kind of gets degraded. So, if we didn't have the terminal tomorrow, I would be very concerned. We have the terminal, but I wish we had more.
We've been talking about that a long time, haven't we?
so long. So, Evan, we got to get to Snow and we got to get to Jim Cantore here in the next 8 minutes. Sure. So give me your thoughts on this radar thing and then raise my spirits by telling me it's actually going to snow.
Yeah, so we'll start down low. Like you said, this radar issue is going to be prominent tomorrow. If we get one of these tornadic storms, these supercell potentially spinning up and moving along the foothills up towards Morganton or even Hickory, right there on the periphery of the Charlotte terminal radar, it's going to be challenging. And in fact, I wouldn't be shocked if those storms, it's just impossible to detect any sort of tornadic circulation in them. So there's not much that we can do in this situation, but the forecasters at GSP in Columbia and our other National Weather Service offices across the Carolinas will be doing their very best with the tools they have on hand. But it'll be a challenging day. So be thinking of your local forecasters, because it will not be fun to go through that process. But to raise your spirits, we do have the first full-fledged northwest flow wintry snow event of 2023 rolling into the mountains after all of this severe weather clears out. So that severe weather rolls through in the evening on Thursday, and by Friday morning, early morning hours, we're starting to see northwest flow snow showers filter into the region behind the cold front. You can see that for the people who are watching us live and not listening. You can see it on your screen here with the blues and the pinks. That blue is the snow behind the cold front, filtering down from Kentucky, Virginia, Tennessee, into western North Carolina. Early morning hours Friday, the first snow showers break out, and that's primarily limited to the high elevation locations right along the North Carolina state line. Unfortunately, or fortunately for those who do not like snow, these type of events don't often impact city locations such as Asheville or Hendersonville. But Boone, you'll get to cash in on it. But for us down here in the lower elevations in Asheville, we'll likely have to wait until Friday night to see any accumulating snow showers. As you go through the day Friday, those snow showers will try to break away from the state line where they're most prominent, but it'll be challenging. And past research shows that nighttime northwest flow is banding is more prominent, I guess is a good way of putting it, during nighttime in western North Carolina. So as we see that banding start to form after sunset Friday evening, that's when we can see these snow streamers start to move down from the high elevations down into town. And we may see some very light accumulations around Asheville. Hendersonville is probably a stretch. It's really hard to get accumulating snow all the way down there. But Cherokee, Bryson City, Boone, Marshall, these locations will be seeing maybe a half an inch to 2 inches of snow. Along the state line, those high elevation locations that I've mentioned a few times, those regions could see 6 to locally 8+ inches of snow. I would not be surprised to see a 12 to 18 inch total somewhere in there.
I know the ski resorts are very happy. You know, Beach,
Absolutely.
Sugar Mountain, they've been making snow. It's been cold enough. We all know it's been cold enough to make snow, but now they'll have some real snow. They'll have a nice Mother Nature supplement on there, which will also boost them up.
And
as
a
they head
holiday
into the
weekend.
holiday weekend. Jinx!
Exactly.
Not only are we wearing the same clothes, but we're thinking the same thing.
That'll be huge. It'll be so nice for them because the resorts are going to be slammed already. Sugar Beach, Cataloochee, Appalachian, everybody's going to be there. It's one of the busiest ski weekends a year. So this is ideal timing for them. Most of their snow will fall Friday morning into Friday night. So by Saturday morning, it'll be starting to dwindle, and skiers will be able to get out there without too many visibility issues. And by Saturday afternoon, evening, going into Sunday, should just be primo skiing weather. So super excited about that for the resorts and for anyone who's listening who might be traveling up there. I'm jealous. I wish I was going with you.
You still have time to make some plans. There's a man who's going to find a way to get out in the cold weather and enjoy some snow. It is definitely Evan Fisher. For anyone who's not aware,
Keep your
it is
eyes on the Carolina Weather Group
epic.
social. If I go, it'll be there.
His beard will be frozen in place. He will find a way.
It's been too dry recently. December was so mild up here. It's quite challenging. But there's a whole tangent and a whole show to do on that.
So
I know
many
we have
shows.
Cantore coming up, so I won't distract us.
So many great shows. We do have the Weather Channel's Jim Cantore coming your way in less than 3 minutes to kick off this 9th year of the Carolina Weather Group. The man who's been here since the beginning, Scotty Powell. Let's give you these closing thoughts on this live pre-show as we talk severe weather. Tell us, Scotty, you have any other thoughts you want to get in on storms, radar, snow, or just your thoughts for the year ahead, my friend?
Yeah, I think watch out for that severe weather threat tomorrow. Super jealous of those folks in the mountains who are going to be getting some snow. I know our friend NCTN on Twitter, he'll probably cash in and get some good snowfall amounts. But speaking of Carolina Weather Group, who would have thought 9 years ago that this little show would be where it is today? So we always appreciate you all for following us and watching us and listening to us. We appreciate all of our guests who have taken time out of their busy schedule to join us and talk to us about a variety of different weather topics, and most importantly, to our panelists who dedicate their Wednesday evenings and sometimes other nights to record these so you all can enjoy them, and the numerous hours we've spent doing winter weather coverage and hurricane coverage and tornado coverage. And we all do it out of the love of our heart. So big thank you to all the panelists who helped make Carolina Weather Group where it is today. And big thank you to James, who has really elevated the game and been able to really put this product much better than where it started at. And so big thanks to James and all those folks, Evan for making those awesome maps, and for Jared doing all the coding and helping you get the ticker up, and for Shay for securing some of our big guests. I mean, Frank for his expert knowledge of severe weather, and just a whole big group of people to thank to help get it where it is now. So.
Well, the guests, I think, are what makes this show so unique and so telling, and the reason so many of you show up each week, whether you're watching us on YouTube, listening to the audio podcast, and the fact that Jim Cantore comes each and every year, not only and gives us so much of his time, but he's always so candid, so nice, so respectful. I think you're all going to really enjoy the episode that is coming your way in just moments. Do like and subscribe. I know everyone says it, but we have a great year for you up ahead. And if you want to be in the know, subscribe so you can be notified when new episodes come out. And I need to say that you can also, for just $1, help support us in our 9th year. Those dollars go to buying lights that are currently lighting up Scotty. Evan needs some lights, but we've run out of money. So if you want to support us at patreon.com/Carolina Weather Group, you get early access to episodes like this one that you are about to see with the Weather Channel's Jim Cantore. Stay safe on Thursday, and we will see you back here again soon for another live edition of the Carolina Weather Group. But somebody pop the popcorn, because this is a good one, guys.